Sean, can I have you clap in front of your face once? Perfect, you just synced our sound. Okay, great. Start anytime.
Hi, I'm Sean,
My name is Bernice.
and we're from Zeroth Labs.
So we do. Damn it.
One more time, Bernice, look at me. Look
Okay.
at me. I saw you look straight at me.
My bad.
No worries, try again.
Okay, go.
Hi, I'm Sean,
My name is Bernice.
and we're from Zeroth Labs.
So Zeroth Labs is a experimental design firm. We work with government agencies from developing countries to tackle problems in the space of urban development and urbanization.
What does that mean exactly?
So a lot of problems in the international development space is, well, obviously complex and complicated, but one of the biggest issues with it is before they kind of go out into the field, they already assume that they know what the solution is. And so there's a gap in the understanding of the problem definition. So what we do is to help it's a jargony thing called system dynamics mapping that we do, and it's through doing that and mapping out what factors and forces are causing whatever the issue is, that then we have a better understanding of what's causing what, and so therefore what are the most root causes you need to tackle first. So if you're a mayor in India and one of your big headaches is this slum that you don't have a hold over, so the increasing, or like say the expansion of the slum is causing a lot of other issues, negative externalities on crime, could be environment and public health, if it's garbage disposal issue, it could be people not getting access to a lot of different services, right? So that's not an ideal situation, but where you're from, like say you're the mayor, you're like, what the heck should you do first? So we kind of help orientate the decision maker on what the nature of their problem is and what they can do first.
Can I get a more concrete example, let's say with like water, then what would you do and then how would they know what the problem is? Can I get like almost like a case study
Oh,
example?
okay, sure. Actually, I'll just build off the slum example. So let's say you, as a mayor of city X, it's an emerging town, or getting into a big city. You think that the problem is jobs, that there aren't sufficient jobs, and what you need to do is job creation. And so you might go talk to different MNCs or businesses to like increase job positions to be open in your area. But then maybe actually the most urgent or pressing problem you need to address is crime. And because of the crime situation, maybe hypothetically to do with some kind of mafia or gangs in the area that you need to get a hold of, you need to address that first so that people have a sense of security to even go to school and think about work. So that's an example of how the framing can lead a decision maker to do something very differently.
So would you say Zeroth Labs, so would you say you guys consult in understanding ecosystem?
That's a big part of it, yes.
Can you put that in a sentence?
Oh yeah. Understand ecosystem. Well,
Or put it in your own words, that's just how I
yeah. Well, it's really system dynamics. Okay. So by understanding that the crime needs to be handled before you go on to create jobs, for example, then this is the system dynamics of the area, what is causing what, and then therefore social mobility as a positive outcome in the end. And what was the question? Yeah, so we do that mapping. The mapping is the contribution to some decision maker on how they should go about what they're tackling.
The reason why I asked about ecosystem is I've been talking to a lot of people and they would tell me, in a way, to find the most innovative solution for a problem, sometimes you have to re-look and redefine this ecosystem,
Right.
and look at all the broken things or all the misconceptions and then fix it. That's why I'm trying to understand how you guys feel about ecosystems.
Right. So ecosystem is a subset of the system dynamics. So the ecosystem, normally when people say it, it refers to the different stakeholders in a certain landscape, be it a certain country or a certain town or a certain region, right? So, but the ecosystem, once you know all the stakeholders at play, they are contributing in different ways, or there's some interesting dynamics going on that you need to take into consideration before you do what you do. The broader system dynamics incorporates the stakeholders, the ecosystem, plus the forces that are driving the issue that you are tackling. Right? So if it's like a drug problem in Colombia, not only do you want to know the ecosystem of the gangs, whoever is under Pablo Escobar, and police, law enforcement people, and community leaders or community organizations, all of it. It's also realizing how public transport is affecting people's access to school, and how a certain comuna, like what they're called on the hillside, it's isolated because of this lack of access, and therefore a great breeding ground for Pablo Escobar's people to recruit people to his operation, right? So it's more than the ecosystem, it's the system dynamics even more broadly.
So how did all this begin?
How did this begin? Well, before we started Zeroth, we actually had another organization. It's a non-profit in Singapore called, what was it called? Shit. It wasn't called that. It was called...
leading up to it. Sync.
It was called Sync. So Sync was started a long time ago, ancient history for us. What it was about, I think it was best described as an asylum for young people. So we were young people in Singapore. We had no idea, how to create the change that we wanted to make in the world. We knew that there was some notion of doing something bigger than us. We weren't quite sure what we wanted to do. And then we met a lot of other young people like that. And then we decided that the way we'll answer our problems is by banding together. And we'll create like a safe space for other people like us to meet, to talk, to kind of work with each other. And that's how Sync first started. And out of that was born Zeroth. What we used to find was, with all these young people we'll work with,
going through programs, workshops,
exactly.
on how to create social change.
Totally. We'd find that they would create projects around planting more trees, or raising awareness about picking up litter, and that's fantastic, right? But that's when the questions of like, wait, are we really addressing the root causes of these problems?
Are we moving the needle on anything?
Yeah, are we? There's a lot of work being done. We can publish fantastic stats about we've reached 20 or 30,000 young people, but I'm like, is that something that motivates me? Am I really achieving the change I want to see? I'm not sure. And that's when we first started scratching the needle on their methods within system dynamics and design thinking and things that allow us to better unpack issues.
And the reason for that is that we realized that why the young people that went through our programs, why they were doing such small scale and not very long-term looking projects was because of a lack of looking at things on a systems level.
Yes.
Right?
And it was that coupled with the fact that, hey, it's one thing to have, to be able to identify what skills and what tools might be necessary to actually create more thoughtful projects. But it's another thing to be able to inspire people to do that. So we started off by just running training workshops, but I realized that, wait, we need people to be doing these activities first to inspire them. You can't just train people without having actual projects for them to say, hey, look, this is what's possible. So that's one of those are underlying factors that led to the creation of Zeroth, where we're not formally doing any more not doing any more training. Explicitly, yes.
And it was because of that whole systems thing, that realization, that we started delving into like system analysis and all the stuff that is actually leads to system dynamics.
But what was the first seed of thinking about system dynamics and designing a system?
I think we were chatting about, we were basically frustrated that we weren't seeing the kind of outcomes from the young people.
The seed of it was looking at people who would run projects and we'd be like, wait, there is something about it that's missing. So that was the seed. I don't know what specific project it was, but it was just seeing the projects that would come out of our programs typically. They'd be fun, they'd be energetic, maybe it's well executed, but the impact is just not deep. It'd be like a one-off project, and I'm like, there is something more that can be created here.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is something about Singapore youth specifically, but a lot of them have ideas around a project to fundraise, or like a campaign to fundraise for some cause. So that's not the actual social impact that we were going for, although it's very important that people still do fundraising for good stuff, but that wasn't what we were targeting. So we had to kind of push these young people to think deeper on what actually they were going to do. So rather than just raise funds for X, what is the X that you want to tackle,
Yeah.
and then do something around that.
Why do you think it's hard for people to take action?
Well, I mean, on the first level is inertia, right? There is the inertia that sits within all of us.
Can you say that in a full sentence for me, please?
Let me say one line first. So the most obvious thing is that Singapore is a developed country. So it's not like you go out and you see like, slum issues like right out your window and like, okay, there's so much that needs to be done. So I think that's one of the reasons why the first thing that people kind of cognitively retreat to, because it's easy, it's fundraising for whatever cause. That's the most obvious one.
Mm.
But why is it hard for people to take action? And I think I'm asking this in general. I think the whole world, globally, young people find it hard to take action.
Oh, okay.
But if you could do
No,
that,
I think there are multiple factors to this, and I think the most basic. So like the reason why I think most young people find it difficult to take action is because of inertia. It's because we have our lives as they exist right now. We have all our current concerns and worries, and when someone tells you that wait, there's this other problem out there. Look, there's this war in Syria, or there are poor people in Singapore. You'd be like, yeah, but I really have exams to deal with, or like I'm struggling to or let's say I'm a young working adult, I'm struggling to meet my rent this month, you want me to worry about something else outside of myself. It is not that I don't care, it is that I already have so many pressing worries. And that's one of the reasons whenever we have to talk with someone or youth who's looking for a project, right? We don't tell the person to go look for the biggest possible problem out there. We try and ask the person, we try to understand what that person's life is about. And we're trying to understand, is there a pressing issue that's already connected to your life? Because don't go and address someone else's problem that just because they're in a situation that they're in some need, you should go help them. I don't think that's the best way to do that. That's a good, I think my answer to that, why not, is summed up in that quote from Lila Watson. You want to say it? She taught me this quote, it's one of the most profound pieces of wisdom I've heard over the years.
Okay, so Lila Watson was an Aboriginal activist in Australia, and she said, if you have come to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. So it was kind of a position of not, person in position of power helping a person who is in less position of power, but that because there was a shared
there's a shared connection. There's a shared
connection.
You're not helping someone else, you're helping someone who is connected
There's
with
a
you.
shared sense of shared humanity, I guess. This sounds really big, but shared humanity and sense of social justice for this outcome to happen, and so therefore work together.
Yeah. I don't think I'll say anything. but I think that's an answer to the question. I mean, it's a good question.
and then
do you want to go to Sean there? What is it?
okay. That was a great quote, and I actually want to expand on that. Expand on walking together. I still think, apart from the people who face problems like paying rent or other things, there are still a lot of privileged people that still don't take action. They have skills, they have value, but there are other reasons why they don't take action. They kind of want to understand it, and I really like the idea of walking together. I feel like a lot of people don't walk together. So can you expand a little bit more?
All right. Do I repeat that question?
So it's actually not a question at
No,
all.
do I repeat? Oh yeah, that's why I just respond to that, right?
Yeah, just
okay.
elaborate on what
Alright.
you guys have been talking about.
I think so. The different categories of people within that. I can't name them all off the top of my head. I'll start with the first one I know. It's the young person whose skills, his talent has a time, right? But spends his time in spas and just not doing anything useful with his skills when he could be.
Drinking coffee in hipster cafe.
Oh, drinking coffee in hipster cafe. So that's what we do all the time. But we're working. That's what we tell ourselves. So where I stand on that is that I won't judge them. I try not to judge people as much as possible. We just judge each other. I judge her more than she judges me. But not to roar, right? But I think why they don't act on anything more is because they don't encounter problems. It's possible to walk through life and not notice anything that reaches out to you. So you know that quote, right? And Watson quote. It's not just a quote of what problems do you pick, but it's also a fact. It's also reflects like how often do you encounter situations that are personally significant to you, that kind of connect to you. And more often than not, when you live your life, taking Ubers everywhere and you have a great job and life is fantastic, you don't really encounter any problems. At least you don't think you encounter any problems.
Or awareness.
Yeah.
That's fine. So for me, I actually would challenge that idea. I think that a lot of people are becoming more socially conscious, to the point where, even for like a random birthday, you might say, oh, don't give me presents, like donate to this cause that I'm interested in instead. So people are taking more action on a personal level, as opposed to, working at an NGO or like creating a whole project yourself, for example. And I think a lot of that is to do with the democratization of possible actions because of all of this, web platforms, like,
Oh, Upworthy. That probably is the big one.
Upworthy. I mean, but like, what is it? Start sound good, and then there's also others like change.org and all these kinds of websites that allow people to take action much more easily, on an individual level. So I think it's changing, and I don't know what the stats are on people who are actually taking action, but I think the level of awareness, or like just general inclination to do something socially positive has increased from like our parents' generation
Oh yeah,
to now.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no longer just, hey, you want to go work? You want to be a social worker? And you want to go work for an NGO? Those are like the only options in terms of doing any sort of good and being responsible to the world. Now, yeah, I mean, I think it's a really insightful thing you said about how these actions are now being increasingly taken on an individual level. And that's okay. In fact, in my opinion, that's great. I mean, all action should begin at an individual level.
And I also think that it's, the reason why I embarked on this project in the first place, because I feel like it's the access to technology.
Mm-hmm.
Now people can take these mini actions, hashtag campaigns, or little steps towards being more engaged with the world. That's one. But then I'm actually more looking into people who take real action, be part of a bigger project, and in a way believe in themselves that they can do these big projects instead of like, oh, I'm okay, I was in this like hashtag campaign where I tweeted and I typed a couple things and I feel like I already did something. But what about really doing something because we have skill and
So this interview is being done at a fantastic time. So that's a good question. The question, how do I say the question? It was, do people, is there anything beyond just hashtag activism, right? So my response to that is, just yesterday, it's big news in America. Do you know? You don't know? You didn't hear about that? You hear about it? Net neutrality, right? That was a massive deal in America. And what was most crucial about that was that it wasn't a single entrepreneur starting a social enterprise that transformed things, but there was one person called John Oliver who did his thing. But because he did his thing, 4.5 million people sent in comments to the FCC to actually change and kind of I think you can actually say they defeated the lobbying industry, the cable lobbying industry, the telecoms industry in America. So they spent millions of dollars, and John Oliver just did one video, and he sent 4.5 million internet commenters that go and send comments to the FCC's website, which crashed their website. And you could say that, oh, we want more John Olivers, but at the same time, I think we need all types. That there are ways that you can make hashtag activism more meaningful, and I think what happened with net neutrality is a fantastic example of how if you actually channel it correctly to the right issue where it's about that was the right issue to send all those internet commenters to go and deal with things. And I can't name a single other online campaign that had that same level of immediate result as that had. Most of them just kind of disappear, just kind of general and fluffy. But maybe the question is, instead of how can we get more people to do more than internet activism, but you have a few questions here. How do we actually create more effective online activism? Utilizing like hashtag online activism. And then you have the question. Then you can get to the question of, okay, how do you get these people to take the next step? I mean, that's another question, which you can get to that.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
I think it emerged. Oh, sorry, it just kind of came out of my head. I think my answer to that is that it emerges. You see, once you get
What
someone
emerges?
involved, we were talking about we want more John Olivers in the world. We want more people who kind of lead changes, right? The first thing that comes to my mind is that you don't say you're a leader, you're not a leader, or you go through this leadership training program and everything's going to work fine for you. I think we need to find ways for people to be meaningfully involved. Right? It's like exercise. Not that I know what exercise is about, but I've read a lot about it. and what I've read is that you don't become an Ironman athlete on day one, right? You start with like an exercise that you find fun. And it's small, but it's fun. And maybe it just stays at that low level for the longest time. But sometimes if it catches, right, it takes you to other places that you never knew you could go to. So the key thing is to maybe look for activities for people to be meaningfully involved. So it's not just involvement, but for meaningful involvement that connects to like broader things.
Yeah.
sorry, once in front of camera. In front of your face. Perfect.
Thank you.
So back to what we were saying. I think that to get people, I understand the whole idea of like there's leaders or followers, there's all sorts of people. Actually, I got another metaphor. It's bank robbers or ATM operators. There are people who would take high risk and make really a lot of tactical choices and to reap, right? And then there's ATM operators who's okay with getting a little bit every day. But what I feel like the world with bank robbers and ATM operators together, there still needs to be what you're talking about, that engagement, that I care about the world or that I understand my relation to the world, because I feel like there are a lot of people who don't, who still don't.
I guess the first thing, when you see that, the first thing that comes up is education. It's not about the cause that you need to educate people about, but what did I wish I had when I was in school? It wasn't to be educated and have a course in social change where you just cover in, this is what happened here and this is what happened here. That's useful, but what's more useful is teaching people how to think. Showing them ways of thinking and asking questions about why certain things are happening in the world. And that's something that doesn't quite happen, or at least didn't happen in my time when I was in Singapore's education system. You just learn to go through exams. We learn, right? Our education system in Singapore is an industrial production line. That's what it is. It's highly optimized, right? And the problem with highly optimized things is if you have situations that fall outside of those parameters, then you can't, you're going to struggle to actually deal with them. Especially when you're optimized to do certain things really well and actually define what those things are. We're really good at being told what are our KPIs.
Key performance indicators.
Exactly, key performance indicators, and kind of drilling, repeatedly over and over again to really fulfill those KPIs. But the moment we're thrown into a situation where there is no KPI,
Where there's ambiguity.
Yeah.
Or where you don't have a clear brief, you actually need to figure out what the problem is.
When you need to innovate without a brief, for instance. Joke, because we have a project where we called that. It was called that, but you're gonna struggle, And it's not just that you're unfamiliar with the content, but you're unfamiliar with the ways of thinking.
Yeah, and
We're not
unfamiliar
used to
with how to ask the right questions that will lead you to better answers.
Yeah.
To understanding.
And if you put it that way, it's no wonder a person doesn't want to engage, because they're like, what? I don't understand what you're talking about. Let me get back to what I'm comfortable with.
And also, I feel like people wouldn't know how to set their own KPIs.
Yeah, possibly.
We that's something that we're that's on our minds. I'm setting our own KPIs, like running our own little organization. It's like, hey, we should agree on what are our key objectives and what are our key KPIs or just key metrics you want to measure, so we know how well we're doing and how happy we are, right? But good Lord, seriously, it's so easy to hear someone tell you that that's the way you run a successful company, and you have to set metrics and measure that, so you can actually learn. when you're thrown like a really large, complicated project that's stretching your capabilities to actually tackle.
Just to execute in the first place.
Yeah,
I don't talk about how high bar, stretch goal, and whatnot.
that kind of falls outside of the window. At least for me, right? It fell outside of the window, and I was just like trying to function on an everyday basis. You know?
Yeah, I think partly also in our case is that the area of work that we work in, the KPIs are not as measurable as in a lot of other organizations and companies.
Yeah.
Like how do you measure transformation? How do you measure powerful problem definition when a job on that has been done well? It's really difficult. So I don't know whether one, is it even applicable, or two, if it is applicable, how do you go about like describing it, or what's the psych term, operationalizing it,
So how are you guys doing it now?
We don't have we don't set our own KPIs. We just focus on what the objective is that we're trying to achieve, and then the question that when we look back is, have we achieved this goal for whoever it is we are serving?
Yeah.
What about the future? Do you see the future in being able
To
measure?
I don't know.
So I don't know, but I think it might be possible. I mean, I think that like you see, when you have like a large project you're working on, so we've just, I think we finished, right?
Yeah.
We just finished like a project that lasted maybe 6 months or something ridiculous like that. Big, complicated, and if we cocked up on it, it would destroy our reputation. That's the way I mentally framed it, right?
Because the client, whatever we do, the client wants to roll it out to Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
So if we screw up, then the screw up will scale too.
Exactly. So that's a lot of pressure. In fact, so much pressure that I don't know whether I could do my best work under that kind of pressure. So wait, but we're talking about the future, right?
Oh yes, the future.
So that's just context from the past. But coming out of that project, I think we're probably going to think about the fact that with that project we were working all the time, and we would push beyond our limits. And I should clarify that means not just you're working very hard, but I think we'll push beyond what was effective for us. It's our ability to do good work, because inherently for the work we do, it's creative work. There is no optimal solution that you can solve with mathematics out there. It's your ability to find insights and discover new things. But when you're weighed down by how little sleep you've had and how much pressure you're under, very difficult to do great work. Which in turn is a vicious cycle, right? Because you're like, wait, we should be doing better work than this, and that kind of weighs down on you. So difficult. And thus, rather than just having one single end goal at the end, having metrics that allow us to understand, are we in an optimal place right now?
Yeah, actually I think that's one of the tangible things that we want to try and achieve, which is a better balance, and not just to say, we want work-life balance as a motherhood statement that everybody says, but does or doesn't do. But like to create an environment for ourselves where we can produce great work. Work that is creative, that is generative, and that allows us to do all this kind of asking questions in a different way, seeing a problem differently, all of the stuff that is our value proposition to whoever we serve.
How would you do that? How would you create this better environment?
Well, it's a combination of, so consultants always say, good, fast, cheap. Choose two.
Old school model.
Well, I'm using that as an analogy to say that you can't achieve a healthy amount of sleep and do great work on a negligible budget, right? Or likewise, you don't have usually it's budget that's the sticking point. So we need resources that then allow us to hire enough people and the relevant people to the table to a project, and then have a reasonable timeline to do it. Otherwise, you can't do things like it's a commodity when it's not a commodity.
Yeah. And one of the other things that we've missed a little bit is a lot of the methodologies and the way we try to tackle problems. We've had inspiration from elsewhere, but we've kind of had to assemble it ourselves.
Yeah.
On our own, and it's not easy. I mean, we're nowhere near like the level that I think we want to be at. But it's kind of like teaching yourself programming without access to like Stack Exchange, you know, or teaching yourself videography just with a camera on your own with relatively limited access to any other, you know, resources out there. Yeah, I mean it's possible, but you go a lot slower, you know. And in Singapore, at least, there's been relatively few people we've been able to work with that can actually help us shape what we're doing right now.
And it's not just the speed as well; it's also the quality of insights from experience. So people who are experienced, who have done tons of projects in the space that we're interested in, we don't have the benefit of that. So we've had to learn in other ways. I mean, there's some stuff online you can find, and then we also have a network of friends and mentors that we talk to, but we could use them more, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can't just reach out to someone and say, hey, ask a question and expect them to get back to you on the same day. But if your timeline is forcing you to only to do that, then it's difficult to just do a project well.
My question is, in a perfect world, like in retrospect, looking back, like what would you have wanted? What would you have wanted? Because I think about people who are islands, who work alone, people who are isolated, maybe self-inflicted isolation, or lack of community. Like I would love to know, in a perfect world, what would you have wanted?
Perfect for
For all the challenges that you went through, like building something new.
What would a perfect environment look like? Is it for us to work most effectively?
For building this company?
Yeah. I'm thinking, I'm processing. Perfect environment.
All the money.
I probably would have started this from the context of school. Like directly within that environment with access to different professors and start working on a bunch of projects whilst I was still there, utilizing resources that I had in school. Yeah. I didn't. I mean, it was totally disconnected for me. So that's something that, I mean, if I think in an ideal situation, someone who's trying to create new methodologies, you know, often the best people to do that, so two options. One, it's from schools, you know, where you have different professors that you can tap, you know, hopefully. And the second option is to work with other different organizations who may not do the direct same things that we do, but similar enough that might allow. It provides, rather than have a blank piece of paper that you need to fill out yourself, you have someone else's work, and you can at least edit that work or be inspired from that work. That's the way I might frame it.
So some context here is that Sean did this straight out of school,
Yeah.
whereas I was in finance for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not exactly the same for.
It's not like we met in grad school and we're like, hey, I have this idea, let's start doing this. No, it was more convoluted than that. Yeah.
Funnily enough, in response to building off what Sean said, I'm actually kind of trying to construct that for myself, which is I want to do grad school in public policy and complexity science, and it's because I feel like I've come out against the limits of how much I can wing it or learn from the internet or talk to other people for and about, and so that's one of my next steps that I'm planning.
In a way, my question is why wish for a school environment? Why can't there be a school environment for people who have the experience, have network, but be able to create a school environment so that they can fly?
Well, the answer for me is quite simple. Like I actually haven't been able to find people at the intersect of public policy design and design getting more now, but public policy design and complexity science plus futures and foresight work. And that's what I'm trying to get at.
Maybe what you need to do is you need to actually just organize dinner sessions between, you see, you may not know someone at the intersect of all these three different places, but you do know people in all these individual places.
Yes, I do.
So maybe you should just get them all drunk, put out a bunch of phone call boards. We haven't done that yet,
Well, there's kind of conversations you can get though. I mean, at a dinner table, as opposed to, I want to know how you do this kind of graphing, or like, I want to know how you do this kind of modeling.
I wonder if there's a way to create that environment for people who can't afford grad school, for people who maybe, because sometimes school systems, I'm just speaking in broad terms in the world, sometimes school systems don't actually give as much.
No, they often don't.
They often don't. People
Yeah.
always tell me, especially startups, that traditional education didn't give them what they needed,
Yeah.
right? So then my idea is why not create a school system but amongst the collaborative economy around you, or access to the tools that are available right now.
But why not? When I say school, I'm not talking about how you need to have courses and certain things. What I am saying is that, like, let's say I want someone who is the best at system dynamic mapping in Singapore. Who is that? I don't know. But if I was part of a school, you just look at the school directory and you'd be able to find that quite simply, and you would have good reason to go and talk to him, hopefully. Right?
Yeah,
So
I
it's-
think it just so happens that we are in a pretty niche space compared to a lot of the other startups in Singapore, I suppose, and because of that, it's harder to find the kind of specific people with those skill sets that we are trying to learn more from.
it's a good idea though.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
No, it's a great idea.
So how do you guys deal with this uncertainty or uncharted territory?
Throw darts in the dark.
Uh,
Hope something hits.
I take it a day at a time. No, I mean that's honest, right? You know what? Honestly, that's it. I don't think that much about the future.
Like ninjas, you know, you go in the night, you go, and then you see like which darts have hit something.
Just so very different approaches, right? You know?
Yes, different methodologies and strategies.
We're very diverse here.
What are your hold on? Thank you. Okay. Dealing with fear and uncertainty. How can you tell me in a moment? Can you tell me describe a moment that you went through, either a worst experience or just a moment?
Of navigating uncertainty.
Or fear.
Well, I can tell you that. So this was maybe 3 weeks.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe like, we can wait for them to be done.
What time is Adam coming? Is he
No,
coming?
they're going.
Oh, you're going.
Normally it's fine, but the crinkly. No worries, no worries.
Why not just like let them faster take it now and be done rather than gingerly.
Yeah. So don't worry, Seth. Just do what you gotta do.
Yeah, often I find when you're like crinkling a bag, you know, you're trying to be as quiet as possible.
Thank you. We'll be
It's loud.
at 4:30. Okay. Thanks. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so the question was.
A moment of either fear
Oh,
or uncertainty.
Yes. So a moment of fear and uncertainty. Big moments of fear and uncertainty a couple of weeks ago. We were organizing, we were running a workshop where we were rolling out this toolkit we've been developing over the last couple of months. So this is the equivalent of you have created a piece of work and it's now your job to teach people and introduce people to this new thing you've built. And trying to figure out how to run that was not easy. It was not easy because
Multiple reasons.
there are multiple reasons overall for the whole project. But with this specifically, the one thing that was on my mind was I can't treat this just as I have this perfect piece of work. Let me show you how to use it. I can't do that because I know the work isn't perfect. I know the work wasn't perfect because it wasn't based on their existing experiences. It was developed independently from their experiences. And you do not want to be that person that says, hey, I'm the external consultant and I'm really clever, use this model. I don't know what you do, but this is really clever, use it. I knew I didn't want to do that.
Well, also the client suggested to us to make it like a co-creation thing. So rather than teaching people as if we know all the answers, it's an opportunity to get inputs from other people to shape this and make it better. So that's actually something that came from them as well, that they wanted to do it this way.
I think we said that to them.
No, but that was because we said that We said stuff earlier.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
And therefore they said, okay, do it.
Oh, so meaning we planted the seed in their
Yeah,
head,
yeah,
you know, oh, that's how it worked. Okay, yeah, we planted the seed in their head early enough that they said that back to us. That's a brilliant idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what exactly is that fear?
The fear is, it's not just producing a piece of work, but the fact that you need to stand up in a room with people over 2 days and engage them on a meaningful level. That is the direct fear of when you're in front of the room. It's not just a public speaking fear. It's the, you don't want to say anything stupid and you don't want there to be awkward silences. It's kind of like, because otherwise the worst thing that can happen is that people are like, what is happening here? You know, it's like your reputation's at stake. Literally, you're on, you know, it's one thing to look at someone else's work. It's another thing to sit with the person in a workshop that they're running and they're prepared for and not be well engaged. And to be like, why are we doing this? Who is up there? It's clear this person doesn't know what they're talking about. There is a huge, huge fear involved there.
So then another level of fear is, because of the specs we were given for this project, we were supposed to come up with this method based on one single project. And that's not actually how things should work in international development. You need a lot of different case studies to then elucidate, okay, here are the kind of principles that you want, right? So what sense does it make to use the data, sample size data of one to like create a methodology? I think the fix that we were in is that we were expected to do something that was fundamentally unreasonable within a fundamentally unreasonable timeline, so that even if you want to do a better job and be really proactive team to do this, you know, we go and do our own additional research, you know, whatever, fine. We wouldn't have minded that, but we were not given the timeline to do that.
Yeah.
So it's the unreasonable expectation plus timeline, and then we're supposed to roll out something that has implications on a regional level. So that was really scary.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? What if we totally missed out on some important principle, and then we're going ahead and teaching these guys?
What would happen?
Well, what possible worst case scenario is that these guys then take let's say it was a flawed process, and then go to their counterpart governments, because the people that we work with, they work with governments in their home country, in the country that they're based. Then they say, hey Cambodia, how about doing this? And then they go, okay, let's do it over the next 3 years in Cambodia. So the fear is that what if we end up, screwing over like 17 countries or however many countries it is within the Asia Pacific umbrella.
Can you give me a concrete example of what that could be? I still don't quite grasp.
If I see things a little bit differently from her, but I think I can give an example. So I think an example might be Burma wants to learn from another country how to develop a new survey mechanism to see uptake on water and sanitation in a rural neighborhood, right? Because their current method, they're like, okay, I think we can do this a bit better. They go find another country, they use our toolkit to try and develop that, and they spend a couple of months working on it, and they realize that, wait, this is not working. And they've just wasted a whole bunch of time and effort.
And the not working could be?
The not working could be they have tried to copy something wholesale from another country, like a survey mechanism. They try and implement it, they spend a whole lot of money doing it, and it just doesn't work. People stare at each other awkwardly.
Oh, let's say this, you were mentioning sanitation, right? Then let's say they go to another country and try and copy what another country did for sanitation. And if it so turns out that the other country was a completely different context and environment and parameters, the solution that they copy is going to fail back in their own country. And then we don't want to cause people to die because of typhoid and cholera, because of poor sanitation systems that were set up based on the wrong replication. So that's like shit. No pun intended.
So it's a fear of responsibility, like that responsibility.
Well, it's fear of implication. We don't feel responsibility, but it's the implication when we've been dealt unreasonable cards.
So this is the thing where I think I see it a bit differently.
If we feel responsibility, we don't take this project at all.
So my worst fear is not that people would do it wrongly, because I think that people are smarter than that. What's more likely to happen is if this toolkit, if this methodology we've created is bad, right? A person will look at it and say, this is bad, and they just won't do it. And that's actually the worst, because if someone tries to do something with what we've created and they encounter problems with it, to me, that's fantastic, you know? Because I want to hear how it didn't work, because that allows me to make it better, right? It's a process of iteration. But my worst fear is that everyone looks at this and it is so strange and alien that I get no feedback. That my work is ignored, you know. So I don't even get negative feedback that allows me to iterate on what I've been able to do. But that I'm like, it's kind of like running something and getting no feedback. You know, it's like that's my biggest fear, which is like I've done a lot of things and nothing has come out of it. Because negative feedback is constructive stuff coming along.
Hold on. Give me a second. How do you guys work together? How are your personalities and how do you balance?
We try not to kill each other.
It's something that we worked together even before Zeroth. You know, we worked together for a number of years, and it's gone through like a bunch of different phases. But I think, evolutions. It's changed over time. But I think we've worked best together when we're iterating from each other. So like, we're not the best at talking things out. Strangely, as strange as that might appear. You think like, oh, when you start a new project, you'd be like, oh yeah, let's talk it out, kind of flesh it out and create a shared vision of it. I mean, that's what I want to get to, but that's something that I've not been able to do. I mean, at least in my memory, I've not been able to do so well. So where we work the best is when she or I would create something first, and that serves as a draft for further discussion. So we iterate on top of that. And this best happens when we're tackling problems that are not that much more complicated than what we've handled so far. You see, because one of the things where we don't work well together is when there is a problem and we create the first piece of work, and most of the time it would be me who looks at it and like, okay, this is not right, but I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to give more constructive criticism than this is not working and I don't know what to do about it. Because that's not helpful. I mean, that's something I've struggled with, you know, in our dynamic. But yeah, the best situation is when it's not that much more complicated than what we've dealt with before, and we can actually iterate between each other.
Are you guys more similar or more different?
That's an interesting question. I think we're similar in some regards, but very different on others.
Yeah.
So where we're different is sometimes our way of thinking is quite different. So I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, same but different. No, so I think at the core of it is that we are motivated by more than just money. We are both seeking purpose in our work, and I think that is probably one of the most common things that we have in common. Like, no matter what other issues that we have, I know that Bernard's not trying to like become, you know, trying to like milk as much money as possible out of this thing. I mean, if we wanted to, she'd be doing something else. Yeah.
I'll just stick in finance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Just on the kind of how we think differently, I think sometimes we use different lenses to look at problems. Like, so Sean is very steeped in like the technology world and startups, and so, you know, a lot of times he comes from an approach of like very lean. How can we just do this in the leanest possible way? I don't know. That's just one characterization. There's so many, right? And then in some cases, I bring like I guess development perspective to a particular problem and say, well, you know, what are the kind of human development outcomes we need to look at for this? We can do lean to a certain extent, but then at what point do we need to bring in other things?
No, that's a great point. I mean, so she is the wonk. Like, she can actually
Policy
wonk, right? She can go through really dense things. I struggle to get through. I can't get through that. You know, my methodology is just asking, why are we doing this? You know, why does the client want this? I mean, just to understand like core motivations behind things.
I think that's something we have in common actually.
right. Yeah.
Are there any like hiccups from the very beginning of your working relationship that you had to like iron through, get through?
Well, okay, I can talk about one. So back in the days when we used to be working on sync, right? Before we did this, we had this. We were struggling to figure out. So I was of the do one thing really well. So don't do a whole bunch of things, right? Just try and find one thing you can dedicate yourself to, and just acquire the resources and just focus on doing that one thing really well. That just provides the center for everything else to build, to be built upon, Versus what we actually did, which was, we would do multiple projects, and for me, I struggled a little bit because like I wasn't able to get my mind into all of them. It's just work you need to get through versus how do these things interconnect. And I wasn't able to create that personal feeling for myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And conversely, I saw the importance of the interconnectivity of all the different areas to then talk about like social change from a higher level. So this was a struggle because I also saw the value of where he was coming from with like focus on one, because then you can be more targeted with your energy.
And then you can roll out more later, so you don't overstretch yourself.
And also because philosophically I'm a relativist, and I get the value of many different perspectives. So it was a struggle trying to balance his with mine, because I understood and accommodated like where he was coming from. So it took some time, I think, to find a kind of
a dynamic where we're not arguing with each other. Because honestly, the arguments that we would have, they'd be like, we need to focus, And when I look back in those days, like the fact that we were arguing, right, shows that we were still fighting for what we believed in. No, we were, right? We were conscious that there should be better ways of doing it, and I don't know whether it was effective or not, right? Actually, quite honestly, it was not. It was not. And if I could have found the right facilitator to help us, figure out like where was that coming from, that would have been great as an example of something that's missing when you build things from yourself, right? Obviously we had friends. You had friends who come in and they would just sit down, and after a while they'd just be like, they're just going at each other, and
yeah.
There was a certain expertise that was required at that moment that we were missing, and we didn't know where to
Yeah,
find.
I think it's like there was some ecosystem or community where they had like co-founder mediators or co-founder facilitators. That would be really good, because it helps it might help to untie some of the knots that sometimes co-founders are in.
Yeah, because quite often, right, from what I see of the stuff in the startup landscape, at least in Singapore, oftentimes it focuses on identifying the best possible people. Right? It's like looking for how you pick the right startups to invest in, what traits should you be looking for, in a startup co-founder. What happens when you look at that, you're like, that's not who I am right now. How do I get to be better? That's a part that I've struggled with, because I know I'm not like the ideal, like I can do everything myself and I'm perfect and everything's perfect. I'm not that. We're not everything. And a number of resources out there for people who know they're not perfect but want to be better. That's something that at least I'm ignorant of. I haven't seen as much.
But in a way, no one is. That's why two halves come together to balance that, right?
Well, what happens when the problem is not in you and you, but in like how you try to resolve your differences?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Figuring
Something
out,
outside of yourself.
Figuring out like strategic, difficult questions.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in the interconnectivity that you're talking about, what you're interested in. Can you elaborate on that?
So this was an old thing that we used to do, sync.
Yeah.
Or just as a philosophy.
Yeah, okay. So when I graduated from Sydney and I came back to Singapore, I was looking for programs that I could be part of so that I could figure out what the heck I should do, right? Because I didn't think I knew all the answers and needed to get guidance. And then when I looked around at the different, they call them youth leadership programs, I didn't find anything that was useful for me, because it seemed that a lot of the programs were in two main camps. One is like leadership development, which is they teach you all your how to model the behavior, lead the way, inspire others. And then the other camp of programs were about activities. So go and clean the beach and do tree planting, spend time with the elderly, and all these kind of activities. But what I needed to figure out was like how does impact become implemented? Or how do you change the status quo for whatever issue that you care about? And there wasn't anything that did that for me, and that's kind of partly also why Sync emerged, because there was nothing that actually fit that need. And so what I felt, something that I observed from a lot of youth programs, because I've been through some of them, is that they will do something, one thing for you. Maybe they put you through a course and then they release you out to the world and you're expected to do magic. But the thing is, change makers need different things to flourish. Not only do you need that whatever training or capacity development that might be, you also need a community of support. You also need to learn from others who have been through the kind of experiences that you didn't yet get, and you will need to benefit from, learn from other people's mistakes and all these kind of things. And then actually get your hands dirty, and get experience. And because of all these different things that I needed, I didn't see them in one program. And I didn't see that, I hadn't experienced all of these for myself. And that's why I saw the importance of all these different interconnected parts coming together. And this is also a good analogy for the kind of issues that we work on, because they are so complex. So back to the slum analogy, it's like you can't just do a jobs creation program and then expect it to transform. You also need to look at people's access to financial services. You need to look at primary school education. You need to look at gang control and crime. And if you handle one or even two or three of these, and then you forget about the other five that need to be somehow managed in order for these three to come up and have a change in the status quo, then all of that, however $1 million you plow into it, is going to go to waste. And the worst is that because the overall system you haven't got a grasp of, what if the intervention that you did actually has negative unintended consequences? And that's fuck, what's the point of doing development work if you're harming people's lives? Yeah, so it's the whole importance of interconnected factors needing to come together.
And last time when we had coffee, you talked about getting anthropologists and different people. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, we want to bring together different we want to bring together people of different backgrounds because of the space we're in. So because we're dealing with urbanization, we not only need to understand behavioral factors, and so look at anthropology and what psychology can tell us. We also need to understand data and how, not just data or get data, but understand how to get data that is effective in helping you understand what the heck's going on, right? And then how do you create solutions? So that's where design comes in. Framing a design challenge and answering questions, or rather developing questions that lead you to answers you're trying to find.
So can you give me a sentence of how you bring this kind of person and this kind of person, this kind of person together?
How?
Or I want an idea of the kinds of people that would work together on one problem for the holistic.
Okay. Okay, well, because we're dealing in the complex space and urbanization, we work to bring together people with anthropology background, psychology. I'm psych trained myself. Sean is engineering trained. People who understand how to work with data, big data, small data. People who come from different fields of design, because it's not just one form of design, there's many different fields of design. So these are just some of the kind of backgrounds and disciplines that we try to bring together. And there's others as well, like public policy, urban planning in particular, that's a relevant one too. And then other stuff further downstream around maybe employment policy or things like that.
And by bringing so many people together, it becomes
a circus. and she is a lion trainer. No, but seriously.
So by bringing so many different kinds of people together, we're trying to understand questions that one or two of these people wouldn't be able to have the fullest perspective on. So it's like the elephant analogy. This is the tail, this is the nose, this is the trunk, this is the body, and they're all correct. But you need the different perspectives to come into like, okay, this is the whole elephant.
Okay, last question. Can I get an idea of what the technology is that you guys use? To get the data, to like how do you get the data, and how do you get insight and all that?
Well, that's an interesting question to answer because for us, our tech is not in the actual like app or something that we use, but it's in the way we frame problems and create like a process to understand that. So I don't know if you could call like the way that we do systems mapping a kind of technology. Where we do actually have a process of synthesis and, well, before that collecting raw data, both qualitatively and quantitatively, put it together and then do what they call sense making, right? And then from the synthesis, which involves a lot of like post-its that you see, then we look at the different themes emerging. And then we go on to talk about things like hierarchy and ranking of issues, or what we suspect, what are our hunches about what is most root and most pressing. So that is, I guess, the technology that we use.
How about getting the data?
So there's different kinds of data. For qualitative data, we basically act like anthropologists. We go out and talk to people. And then for quantitative data, we get it typically from the client that we're serving. So because this work is normally in some domain, the client should have some data on their space. So for example, with the urban poverty project that we did, the client was this family service center, which is like a welfare organization in a particular neighborhood. And so they provided us aggregate data on their cases. So like the different families and residents that they were looking after, they all had case files. So they didn't actually share with us case file information because of confidentiality, but they could give us aggregate data. And it was by sort of working with that data that we found this interesting correlation between employment status and family violence. That this correlation was not picked up on before.
Do you use any sort of system to deal with all this data, or?
Well, that one was Excel.
Nothing sophisticated.
Are you guys going to be moving towards?
Oh yeah, I mean definitely we're more interested in working with like big data as well. So we might look into, things like R or other kind of like data passing systems.
When the project presents itself.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to sign up for like the big data course that's offered the Singapore government actually is like subsidizing some data courses. I'll tell you more about it later. And just sort of bone up on our capabilities to work with data, just because there's going to be more and more sources. And I'm personally very interested in Internet of Things. So how do you use sensors to tell you about what is going on?
This is the last question. What is the big future vision of where Zeroth Labs is going?
World domination! Sorry.
You really want to worry about everyone's problems? Everyone wants to be the world dictator, but can you imagine actually being the dictator of the world? That would be the world's most stressful job. What you want to be is the puppet master. Have someone else out there to delegate everything,
Before you answer me, can you lift up your that side?
Oh, right, yeah. What's the big vision? Okay, this will probably sound a bit audacious, but one of the big visions that at least I have is that the future of the way international development work is done will change. Right now, it's a huge industry. The World Bank, the UN, and other big multilaterals and foundations fund tons of consultancies and tons of actors in the field to do all kinds of projects, and those have impact on people's lives. What if the way we went about development work was more driven by first principles, like what is the problem you're trying to solve, rather than what donor wants, right? When donor doesn't know everything. What if there was a more emergent way of dealing with information that comes in, so you're not bound to a certain project time frame? I mean, you should have some kind of parameters, but that if you discover information along the way that tells you, oh shoot, we actually got an assumption totally wrong about how people are drinking water from their village, then you should be able to act on that information and change course on your project, like accordingly, and not just keep going because, oh, that's what project specs say and we are bound by the contract, right? And what if these multilateral agencies who are financing this work are more, I don't want to say more enlightened because it means that they're not enlightened, but that's not a useful way to say it. I mean, what if they had more latitude to say, yes, focus on trying to understand the problem better and create solutions that actually answer to those questions. I mean, I think that will have, I mean, it sounds like very industry talk right now, but it's because I care a lot about how this industry is very blunt right now, and it's causing a lot of pain both for organizations doing good work, but also on the people that they're serving. So I think this is something that really, really needs to change. And if some of the, wacky, quirky ways we are tinkering with such methodologies has some little bit of, just make someone in the field think differently about how they might scope out a project next time. I mean, that's already huge because this space moves very slowly.
Thank you. That was a great answer. Sean, do you have anything to add to that? Okay, if you can, like Xerox Labs, like we're hoping to take Xerox Labs.
Technology teachable.
Honestly, I'm not quite sure. I don't have one at the back in my pocket. Oh, oops. Sorry, I don't have one in my pocket right now. I think one of the areas that I hope we might be able to look at more moving forward is to look at look at discourse, public discourse online. How people engage with complex issues that affect them. I think a big part of creating social change is not just go out to create that change, but how you discover and understand the issues around you, and the act of talking and discussing that with someone on a not sophisticated, on a nuanced level is so important, and it's something that doesn't happen in the world right now. So I'm not trying to design more effective social change, but rather design the context and the conditions where people can have the right kinds of discussions where that's possible. Now, what form will this take? I'm not precisely sure yet, but I think it needs to happen.
So in the back of your pocket, do you have what's the future of Xerox Labs?
Let me put it this way: one of our inspirations is the X Labs at Google. I mean, everyone it's an inspiration for everyone, right? And all I want my building where there's a solid enough.
All I want is my building.
It's my building, right? We're full of interesting people doing different things where we can pull together to work on small little skunkworks projects. So we have a project we want to build a new online discussion platform, for instance, or we want to build a tool that allows you to actually see bias in news, or subscribe to. Go ahead. Subscribe to particular news articles. So you've read one thing, how does that connect to something else that follows after that? How do you see overall patterns beyond the noise that you see? All these are individual tools one might be able to build, and the future of Xerox is one where we can actually bring small teams of people to build and prototype these little things.
And things like, can we explore drone technology in Dhaka, Bangladesh, to circumvent traffic, and can we look at sensors to understand safety in cities, a lot of crime that happens because of unsafe parts of the city, or to understand movement when a crisis happens, all those kind of things that we are interested in and we want to explore. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.